Today we're going to talk about the role education plays in building a bigger table through diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI. We hear those terms all the time. Now, despite all the hostile rhetoric, there is more that unites us as a people than divides us. We all want the same things. We want the ability to provide for our family. We want to live in a safe community. And we want to provide a better life for our children and our grandchildren. In short, we all want to be seen, heard, and matter, belong. My guest today is Dr. Rebekah McCloud. She's the executive director of the TRIO Center at the University of Central Florida. Dr. McCloud has done it all in her education career. She's a former elementary school principal, middle school math teacher, tried doing that sometime with middle schoolers, a high school English teacher. He's authored more than 50 publications, including several book chapters, 2 books, and co-authored 2 additional books. She's made over 150 presentations, designed workshops, facilitated training sessions. She's also an award-winning journalist and a former editor and of the award-winning Florida English Journal. There is no one more qualified than Dr. McCloud to speak on this topic, and I am thrilled that she's here today. Dr. McCloud, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Oh, Frank, thank you. Good morning. I appreciate the introduction. The last time we talked about returning to basics, and you asked me what that means to me. I think we're missing the mark. Over the past 30 years, we've lost so much, and all in the name of standardized testing. Curriculum that was deemed as fluff and expendable was removed, and in its place, testing, and more testing was implemented. Basic skills such as financial literacy, shop, business, home economics, life management, and the like were tossed out. However, unlike the chalkboard and the overhead projector, they were not replaced with a new and improved versions. Consequently, we have a group of students who have learned to rely on machines and to do what my generation and several others did as a matter of course. Things like tell time. I found students who can't tell time on a clock because they're looking for the digital. And
Exactly.
if it doesn't have the numbers, forget it. Yeah, they're stuck with, I'm not sure what it is. Or if you say it's half past and it's half past what does that mean?
Exactly.
Things like make change. Have you ever gone into the store and, the cash register, there's something going on and a drawer opens and then the clerk can't make change, and those are things we learn, it was like mental math. You learn how to do those things. Balance a checkbook. I have folks who say, well, I have to call the bank to see how much money I have. And I think, well, don't you just have a checkbook or, register? And they go, what is that? Just an envelope. I've had students say, you don't know how to adjust envelopes anymore, or write in cursive. These are not rocket science, I know, but they matter, letter writing, for example, it helps students to have clarity of thought. It helps them to write for a variety of audiences, to express their ideas and their opinions. And learning to write simple sentences and using a variety of punctuation marks, those are basic skills, but they lend themselves to developing higher level skills, such as creating compounding complex sentences, using figurative language, composing essays, and compiling research papers. Isn't that what we want our students to do as they start preparing for college on the SAT and the ACT and all these other things, is learn how to write and show that they can write? I think we've just really forgotten as a society how to connect the dots, how going from, just writing that letter to say thank you to composing an essay, how those connect and how those skills kind of, meld together.
Exactly right. I was a corporate CEO for several years, and one of the things that we saw was the lack of ability to communicate. And this is pre-COVID.
Yes.
And there's the writing, and it was like, oh my goodness, what's happening here? They're smart people. Just again, as you said, these basic skills have been lacking.
Yes. I didn't
just
even say, email etiquette, you know, and email addresses and just, I remember the first time I get an email for a student that said, hey, and I'm thinking, who is sending me an email that starts off, hey?
yeah, it's different. And then the punctuation they use and how they spell the word. It's I have two daughters that went through that as email and everything was becoming in vogue, and would go, oh my God. But they learned it's coming along. One of the things we discussed last time, Dr. McCloud, was what happened to education during the COVID crisis? What did you see coming out of that? What's happened?
One of the things I think we learned from COVID is that the technology divide is real and it's more widespread than I think was first thought. When the country shut down, students were forced to learn online. And for many of them, that was an issue. And I mean, from the students from kindergarten all the way through college, there was a lack of hardware for many of them, software, and internet service. Secondly, it was a common thought that students had excellent technology skills. People would say all the time, oh, this generation, they know how to use technology. Nah, that wasn't true. It turns out they didn't. The students know how to download apps, they play games, they make videos, they can post things, but they really don't know or didn't know how to utilize technology to expand their education. And most of them were in uncharted waters when this happened because they weren't used to, reading and doing and all of the nuances that go with online learning. So they had to learn online, at the same time that they were trying to learn and to learn a lot of times by themselves. Many of them are so used to learning in teams or in a classroom, but now to learn in isolation or to be at home in their bedroom or someplace else and being forced to be on camera with their headsets and all that. For a lot of them, they weren't used to that freedom and the discipline of trying to do those things and carve out that time. So it was really tough for students. Additionally, I think instead of what we call summer melt, which is loss of learning over summer, I think we had more of a leaky pipe. Academically, our students really suffered. One of the things we learned post COVID is what they're calling now the unfinished K-12 learning. We recently had a speaker on campus from EAB, and he shared with us some of the data about our topic, and he noted the decline in math skills. And one of the things he did was talk about looking at the students in 2021, spring 2021, 2022, and historically. So fifth graders and historically function at like a 63%. The students were at a functional math skill. And spring 21, that went from 63 to 55%. And then in spring 22, it went down to 52%. And what was even more shocking is for eighth graders, it went from 43% down to 37%. So those eighth graders in 22 are now going into high school. And then 4 years later, those students are going to go into college. And you can just see that ripple effect of these students not being able to achieve functional math skills. At the eighth grade, only 37% of them. So just look at what's gonna happen as those students now enter college aged. It's kind of projected that it'll take probably through 2032 or beyond for things to normalize again.
Wow.
For these students to kind of catch up and get back to where they are. And that's a good little while for things to churn. Same thing with reading. Reading skills declined, and it went from like third grade from 74% of the students achieving functional reading skills down to 67%. And that's, reading is fundamental. When
Yes.
students can't read, there's so many other things they cannot do. And that's, really, for me, I look at that academically, we have these students now behind. So what does that mean? As we say, we're progressing, our society to becoming, this age of technology and AI and all these things that are happening. How is that going to impact? How is our sense of knowledge and what we know going to impact what we're able to do. Plus the graying of our society, all of our of us people with this gray hair, we're leaving. Who replaces us? Where's that brain drain, that knowledge drain? So that's kind of frightening for me. Um, Additionally, I think students felt like they were isolated when they were in COVID. We talked hearing a lot about mental health and a lot about students. They lost out on the development of social skills and listening skills. Being by yourself by choice is one thing, but being by yourself because you're thrown into it not by choice, by something that's happening outside that you have no control over, I think was a multiple whammy for kids because they were thrown out of school where most kids love school for the social pieces of the
Yes.
school. I mean, not they don't like school; they like their friends at school, and some learning sometimes is fun, and they have a little fun with that. But being away from their sense of who they are and that sense of development, and then away from teachers and routines and all those things, and thrown into I'm in my room or I'm at home with maybe just my family or I'm alone was devastating for students. And I think that I see on the internet people learn to react first instead of learning to stop and think and then respond. Because, when you bounce ideas off other people and you're in an environment where you have to think and talk, you act differently than when you are, in isolation. Um, Social media, I think, is something akin to the bathroom stalls of my day. Back then you'd go in and it was a place where
Stuff written all
you would
over.
irresponsibly spew out these ugly comments and rumors and whatnot. And so social media is this place now where people just throw stuff out there, because it's easy to hide behind a keyboard. You know, you like that face to face interaction, and it's really led to, I think, some really hostile and ugly rhetoric that's out there and things that people believe are true or that I think they think it's okay to say and do. And for me, that's again equally frightening because we can't continue for this to be the norm. That we're continuing with
Absolutely.
it's okay to say what you think. Um,
Absolutely.
it's okay to have an opinion. But my mother used to say it's not expedient to speak always. Sometimes you just got to keep your mouth shut.
Yes,
Keep your opinion to
exactly.
yourself.
Exactly. I spoke to a group of students and they said, we're in a reactive society now.
Mhm.
You react. So you get the message. And one of them said, she said, Frank, if I don't respond within 30 seconds, then I'm out. I'm basically not going to be included anymore. And I said, how can you respond in 30 seconds? You didn't even have enough time to think. So, well, you just put something out there. And I think that's what's been occurring.
Mhm.
And then now some of the stuff on some of the college campuses with this reaction, well, what's free speech? But this free speech is driving hate and driving discontent and driving dangerous things. It has to stop.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. And I'm not sure that people understand that. I think they're more driven by this. Yeah, I have to react. If I don't say anything, it means I'm not into what's going on. And I, say to the young people in my life that it's okay if you don't say anything. It's okay not to respond. It's okay to tell how you really feel about things, and it's okay that your feelings are different than the group. That's fine. That's what civil discourse is all about. That you're
Exactly.
able to share your opinions, that first of all, you have your own opinions, and that you're able to share those and you're able to then listen to somebody else's opinion, and that's what it's all about. Just, we should always listen to understand, not to be heard, not rehearsing what we're going to say next, but
Exactly.
to understand what the person is saying to us, and then to to listen, not to have 25 things ready to pounce.
Exactly.
It's not about the pounce.
Exactly. And they're talking over people, and it's crazy. But Dr. McCloud, for our viewers who don't know what it is, most do, but what is TRIO?
TRIO, it's a term that was coined back in the 1960s to describe three federally funded programs that were a part of President Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty. And the three programs, the first one started with Upward Bound in 1964. And then there was Educational Talent Search in 1965 and Student Support Services in 1968. And then they were called TRIO because there was three.
Three of them.
The first, one of the little tidbit, one of the first TRIO Upward Bound programs was in Florida, at Florida A&M University, and they currently still have a TRIO program. So we have some that have been along 40, 50 years here in the state of Florida. After those three, there were five additional programs that were added. There was the EOC, which Educational Opportunity Centers, Veterans Upward Bound, then there's a training program, and then the Ronald E. McNair Post-Baccalaureate Achievement Program, and then in 1990, Upward Bound Math Science. So TRIO starts with middle school. Talent Search starts with students in middle school, and it can serve students from middle school all the way up to adults who don't have a high school diploma. So then the Upward Bound is just for high school students 9 through 12. So it's Upward Bound Math Science. Veterans Upward Bound is for military veterans who are getting ready to go to college. EOC works with adults who don't have a high school diploma and who want to go on and seek post-secondary education. The two collegiate programs are Student Support Services and the Ronald E. McNair Post-Baccalaureate Program. So Student Support Services works with students who are working on a bachelor's degree. McNair works with students who are preparing to go on to graduate school and get a PhD.
Wow.
So that's the difference. When the students come into the program, no matter which program, we track them for 6 years. And for the high school, the pre-collegiate programs, we track them for 6 years after graduation from high school to see if these students have obtained a post-secondary degree or credential. And then when they're in the collegiate programs, we track them for 6 years, and the same to make sure they get their PhD. So by federal regulation, 2/3 of the participants must be low income and first generation college students, because people always ask why, and I think, well, you have to remember why it began. President Johnson was looking at his war on poverty, and he thought people need to be educated, and then people need to be able to they have an income, and so it was designed for pulling people out of poverty. So it was for these folks for 2/3. So still, since 1964, that regulation has not changed. It's been 2/3 of the students are first generation and low income individuals. So TRIO is like a pipeline that spans from middle school through post-secondary college. And I say we get students to and through post-secondary education. One of the things for me and TRIO, I've been involved with TRIO for more than 20 years, is that we meet students where they are socially, financially, educationally, and we prepare them with that post-secondary mindset. A lot of times students don't, because they're first generation, they don't think about college or think they can go. They think, what is this college thing? Most of them are like, I just want to get out of high school and get a job. I want to get out of high school and do whatever. And they don't think a lot of times that I can go to college, or I can go to some kind of a post-secondary program, and I can learn something that can lead me wherever it is that I dreamed that I want to be. And so that's what TRIO does, is we really look at the entire student. It's a holistic program because we provide services. We're required to provide academic tutoring for all of the programs, financial literacy, career planning, test prep. If they're going to college, we do help with the ACT, the SAT. They're going to grad school, we look at the GRE, the MCAT, the LSAT, the GMAT, whatever it is. We also help them to select courses to make sure they're on track. for high school graduation and college graduation. And then one of the things I like to do is I talk to students, high school students and their parents about having two plan A's. You know, a lot of people say you got to have a plan A, a plan B, a plan C. And I said, no, let's have two plan A's because when you have a plan A and you have a plan B, if you don't make A, then B sounds like the booby prize
Right.
because you're doing this because you weren't good enough or whatever, and you have this whatever, this is something I do. And I tell students, develop two plan A's that are equally viable. And say to yourself, not if I can't do this, I'll do this. Say, I have options. I can
Exactly.
do this and I can do this. And then I have options and I make a choice about which of the two options I choose. Instead of, well, if I can't do this, well, I'm gonna settle for this.
Here's the fallback plan.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. I tell them
Exactly.
we're not having a fallback plan. We're having a choices. And when you prepare yourself to have choices. I do the same thing for our college students, and they all come in and they know I'm going to say to them, so what are you going to do after you get your bachelor's degree? That's not a place to stop. That's just a start.
That's
So
exactly right.
what's next? Are you going on? Are you getting a license, a certificate, a graduate degree? I tell them I want you to be a lifelong learner. I am. I learn all the time. And the students recently, I was in class with one of my students, and he looked over and said to me, "Why are you in this class?" And I said, "Just because I'm old doesn't mean I stop learning." He said, "But you already have a doctoral degree." And I said, "And what does that mean? I can learn and I will continue to learn." So,
Exactly.
and I tell them, just keep learning. I mean, learning education is the only thing you'll ever have that no one can take away from you.
Exactly.
Do it as long as you can. Don't give it up.
Exactly. One of the things you said, Dr. McCloud, that struck me is reaching out to the parents. Now,
Yes.
I'm a first generation college student, and this is what I was told. I'm sure it hasn't changed a great deal. Was you're getting an opportunity none of us had. You
Yes.
must be successful. You must be professionally successful. You must make a living, good living. You must set an example for your siblings and future generations. You're 18, 19 years old. No pressure there, right?
Right. One of the things, when we talk to parents, when I talk to parents and I talk with my staff about this, is, yes, parents want the best for their children. All parents want the best for their children. They want their children to be successful. But, I say to parents, you know, you and your students are going through, this is a process. This is a family process, that going off to college or into a CTA program is something that's happening to all of you. Because what happens to your child also can make a difference for your entire family. And it's not that sometimes students feel that they have to financially support their family, but I say it's just that change in mindset. Because we've noticed that we've had students who, in our upper bound programs, where the students start getting prepared for college, and then the parents are excited. And so we do workshops with the parents to help them if they don't have a GED to get a GED, if they don't have a college degree to get into college, to get them ready so they can go on to college or to some kind of program where they get a license or a credential of some sort. So it's really this kind of mind-changing thing, I think, for the family. In our upper bound programs, we have a summer residential program. And during the summer, the students come out and they live on campus with us. And we have all upper bound programs. Most of them have a 6-week summer program. So our students come out, and I was amazed the first time we had the students moved into the dormitories, well, the residence hall. They told me to stop saying
The
dormitory.
residence hall, right?
The residence hall. And parents, families, the whole family came. And it was like a major event. And families came, they took pictures, and people said, we're going to college. And I was just like, okay, I'm thinking, okay, well, big deal, we're moving in, we're going to have fun. But this was a major event where parents came, they brought all the siblings, and they sometimes brought grandparents and cousins, and it was major. So we would have 50, 60 students, but then another 100 or so people who were there who were just so excited that their kids were are going to stay on a college campus, and they said, we are going to college. And for me, that was like, okay, we're going to college. And what do we do now for these families to get them engaged in this college going mindset? So it's not just we're going to come and we're going to stay for 6 weeks or a week or two and live on the dorms, but what is this all about? It's more than just that. So how do we involve everybody in this? And I mean, just that, something that seems like it's so simple, living in a dorm, it makes a huge difference in the life of these students.
It opens up possibilities that they never thought was possible.
Yes.
And I remember, I think it was President Kennedy, his comment was, "A rising tide lifts all ships."
Yes.
And that's what's happening with this type of a program, correct? We're
Correct.
taking people and we're making generational changes. Is that right?
That is, yes, so correct, so correct. When we look at these programs are a hand up. They're not a handout. I know a lot of people say, oh, this is free education and, we don't want to. No, it's not. These are hand up. This gives us the opportunity to lift as we climb. A lot of my staff are first generation students themselves. And so they have the opportunity then to talk with the students and the parents when they come in about their experiences as as first generation college students and what they learned in the process, and to be able to say, okay, here's what I learned and now I can help you. And then in the process, then you're going to help somebody else. So we have both a pre-collegiate program, upper bound programs, and we have student support services program, which are the college programs. And we also have a McNair program on our campus. So when our upper bounders come in, we try to get our college students to help move them in, to talk with them, to mentor them, and kind of share what they've learned as actual first generation college students about, here's what you're going to learn when you get here, to really say, we're really connected. We're in this with you. We're rooting for you. And I think that people have to understand that we need to try to break the cycle of poverty. And
Yes.
poverty is not just not having money. Poverty is also, for some people, a mindset. And so providing opportunities, possibilities, the space to dream, and not only to create dreams, but the opportunity to have dreams and then to make those dreams become reality, that helps to break that cycle. So it's not just being poor, but breaking that whole mindset of the people in poverty and of the people who are not in poverty, because they have preconceived notions about what it means to be impoverished.
Yes.
So it impacts, all of us. And it helps again to build that generational wealth, gives families the opportunities to have a sustainable career and a livable wage, and move away from just a job. Some people just want a job. But for
Yes.
us, one of the things we really want for our students is to move beyond holding a job to building a career. And then just really seeing that I have a job today, and jobs are wonderful. I mean, I think everybody should be employed, but we want students to see that when you build into a career, this is something where you get benefits, retirement, whatever. Sometimes you get a job, you get an hourly wage, and that's it. There's no health care with that. There's no retirement.
Right.
There's nothing. It's just that you put all of this into something, and at the end of 20 years, what's the reward, if you will,
Exactly.
for being there? You get sick. Can you afford to go to the doctor? Do you have any sick leave when your children are sick? So we want them to move away from just a job into having a career. I think these programs, for people say it's a ripple effect. The ripple effect is real. However, I see these programs as more than a petal being thrown to a pond. I see it as a boulder being hurled into a lake. because I see the ripples. They're not ripples, they're waves.
Yes,
And those waves can, as President Kennedy said, lift all boats. And everybody benefits when we break that cycle of poverty. Everybody, the people who are in poverty and the ones who are not, we all
exactly.
benefit.
Exactly. Everybody raises. Now, we spoke last time, and you're the first person to tell me this, that 2014 was a watershed moment with for the first time, the entering kindergartners, the majority was what we list as minorities. Okay. How's that going to impact education?
Wow. That's going to really impact as we move forward. We're going to have to change our mindset about who's in our schools. Right now, I was looking at some data in 2021. 47% of students were white, and then 27 were Hispanic. Percent were Hispanic. 15% were Black, and 11% were of other races. So we're now a majority minority state in our schools. As a matter of fact, UCF, the University of Central Florida, where I work, we're now a Hispanic serving institution. And that means that more than 25% of our students are Hispanic. And we're one of nearly 300 institutions in the nation with this designation. When you look at the first gen students, and you look at minority majority, um, looking at about 56% of our students in the US have parents who don't have bachelor's degrees. That's a lot. That's a lot, and especially in this time when we like to say we're very educated, our populace is educated, but 56% of all those students, they're first gen. And then when we look at those students, about 60% of them, they're the first one in their family. Of all the siblings that go to college, most of these students come from low income families. 28% of them are 30 or older. So these are, not the traditional age 18, 20-year-old students going to college, but they're 30 or older going to school. Most of them go to public 2-year institutions, and they attend school part-time. Most of them have jobs, may have families, and they don't finish college in 4 years. And right now, about 55% of our kids under 18 live in households where the parents don't have college degrees. So what does that mean? That's a wow.
Yeah, it is.
That's a wow. That means we have to change the way we do things. If we know that the average age of our student is 30, then how do we change how we provide things? For one of we have 2 student support services programs, and our one Project Best in that program, it's for students in all majors. We noticed that the average age of the student in that program is about 28. And we were, when we first started, we were treating this as a regular traditional college age program. And we were noticing that a lot we were having students who weren't showing up to things, and so I said, all right, let's stop and let's talk to the students. And what I discovered was that we had a group of students who were parents, and so as their students and their parents, then any kind of nighttime activity we had was, like, for most of them, a no-no,
Yes.
because they had to be at home with their kids and their activities. Also, a lot of them didn't feel connected because they felt they're older.
Older.
They have nothing in common with younger people, or they just kind of felt out of place. They were part-time. So we were intentional about developing learning communities for our parent learners. And so we were able to get them together and have them come to activities and bring their kids with them, and to really say, okay, we understand these things that we're trying to provide for you are important, but we understand we need to deliver them in a different way. Because for you, just coming and having some social activity with 20-year-olds is not what you want or not what you need. So what you need is to come and interact with people who look like you or in the same kind of situations with you, and bring your kids if you need to, and help you to develop buddy systems where you can work with folks at that same age where you feel comfortable. And so for us, that was really learning for us to say, okay, let's look at who we're working with and what we need to do to make this doable. Because getting a college education is doable,
It is.
but
It
there
is.
you have to have the right supports in place for students.
And bringing the children is enormous because now we're creating that mindset you spoke of earlier that
Yes,
this is what's going to happen. Yes, you are going to go through this, and it's not so foreign or so frightening.
yes,
It's
yes.
I
And kids
love
got
it.
to see their parents doing homework too. You
Yes.
know, it's like, I remember when I was years ago working on a master's degree and my children, we would have homework time, and they would see me doing my homework, and they would say, "You got homework?" Well, yes, big people in college have homework too. So I'm doing my homework, and I'd be writing stuff out, and I'd be on the typewriter, and at the time it was a typewriter, on the
Yeah,
typewriter.
I remember that. I did that
Yeah,
too with the typewriter.
typing stuff, and they were like, "Oh, yeah, we have homework too." So it was good to see that we all had, homework time. So,
Finding that sense of belonging is such a big deal. When I got out of the Air Force, I was 23, 24,
mhm,
and I was a Vietnam veteran. And so going back to school, it was I felt completely out of place because we're 18, 19-year-olds and they're talking about, go binge drinking and all this kind of stuff. And I just want to get through this. Yeah, that was my mindset. And thank God there was a veteran service center that at least you had somewhere to go because you had some kind of common ground.
right.
I think one of the things we talked about last time is first off, you're going to have to understand what's different and
Yes.
then find an area to compromise because we're going to have to address these things, these different challenges, correct?
Yes. Yes. And I think compromise is that place where people sometimes think they're losing something if they compromise. And and I think students most of them are much smarter than the adults are, because kids um, know how to share and explore, and they learn on their own to compromise. We're going to share this, we're going to do this, and then adults kind of come in and go, no, this is mine. you
That's right.
know and and that's really sad, because um there's room for everybody. This world is big enough for all of us to share. you know Sharing is not a weakness. It doesn't mean that something's being taken away from one group because we're sharing it. You just, like I said, build a bigger table. It's not, I'm going to give up my seat at the table. Keep your seat. Let's just have a bigger table so everybody can be a part of it. These are our children. And I hear people sometimes saying, well, your children, my children, their children, they're all our children. Our children together. They're our future. You know that song there? I think the children are our future.
Yeah,
They are. And it's our future, not my future, your future, their future, our children. And we need to learn how to work together and seek to understand and not just tolerate. I think, people talk about, let's just tolerate one another. Let's do more than tolerate one another. Let's try to understand, and let's compromise when we can, and know that sharing is not a weakness. We're not losing when we share. We're actually gaining when we do. There's
we actually
enough
are.
for
What
for
I
all of us.
discovered in the corporate sector is as we started bringing in other than I spoke to one, let me back up for a second. I spoke to one executive one time and they were struggling. And I said, what do you perceive the problem is? And he goes, Frank, I look around my boardroom, all I see is old, fat, bald, white guys. I said, and there is a problem. And as we started bringing in different mindset, different ideas, different cultures, we started, in their case, they started to see slowly, but they started to see a change in the way their business was being done. And I love your statement, just building a bigger table. Okay, because now there's more ideas coming in, and there's different
Right.
ideas coming in.
Mhm.
There's always options, as you mentioned, to accomplish something. And I love that. Build a bigger table.
Yes. Yes. Good.
Well, we're just about out of time, Dr. McCloud. This has been just amazing conversation. What last thoughts do you want to leave with the audience around the world today?
I think education is still the great equalizer. Education has many paths. It could be by obtaining a 4-year college degree, or it could be, through completing a career technical education program. CETE has made a huge comeback, especially post COVID or during COVID and post COVID, because people are finding that they can go into a degree program or a non-degree program, learn a skill set, and then lead to a high-paying job or career, especially in technology and software and now all the stuff that's coming along with AI. As the kids say, get in where you fit in. And I think when we're starting changing our mindset from holding a job to building a career, it's going to be critical for our nation to foster the development of a generation of producers and not consumers. I also think it's important that educators need to see the whole child and create learning environments that are learner centered and not teacher centered.
Mhm.
As a teacher, I'm a coach and I'm a facilitator who facilitates learning. I'm not a sage on the stage who shows I'm smart. I should be smart. I'm the teacher.
That's
But the
right.
classroom is for the students to show how they are smart, not if they're smart, because they are. And it's this teacher's job to meet the students where they are and to take them as far as they can go and beyond. The saying is man's reach should always exceed his grasp. And so that's what we should aspire for our students, that they go beyond. And it's a poor teacher when the student does not exceed you. So,
Ah, I love
yeah,
that statement. I
yeah.
got to ask you this, and you have a spectacular career and you've accomplished so much. What are you most proud of?
Um, like, oh gosh, besides my children, my grandchildren, here at UCF, I think for me is the legacy of Trio. When I came here 28 years ago, we had first generation students, low income students, and we did have lots of support for those students. And I said we need something to support these students because for me, I'm not a first generation student, but going to college, I had friends who were, and I saw the difference in their um, their college experience and my college experience. I mean, my dad had a doctorate degree. I always knew I was going to college. It was just which one, and we talked about college in my house. But when I went off to college, I met students who looked like me, who were floundering around, who didn't know what to do. And I thought there needs to be some kind of support for students of any color who come into college and really don't know what to do, where to go, where the supports are. And so when I came here, I started singing my trio song because I
Yeah,
thought, okay, there's money available to do this. And, everybody would say, ah, here she comes. They're going to sing that trio song.
right.
And we finally in 2001 got a McNair program. And so we've had that program for the past 22 years. And we had 7 others. So we've had a total of 8 trio programs here at the University of Central Florida. And so for me, that's a legacy that we were able to look at what the needs are for students who are first generation and students who are low income, students who are older students who are veterans, students who really needed an environment where they could thrive, not just survive. People say we want to survive, and I want the students to thrive,
Great
and
statement.
accomplish. So,
It's a great statement. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. McCloud is somebody you need to know and you need to be engaged with. How do people reach you, Dr. McCloud?
you can call me, 407-823-0344. That's here at the University of Central Florida, or just send me an email And it's my name, Rebekah.McCloud at ucf.edu. And I'll get back to you.
Folks, write that down. She does get back to you. I reached out to her and she got back like almost immediately. This is amazing. Well, as I said, folks, we're just about out of time. I want to thank Dr. McCloud one more time for showing us that we can build a bigger table and include everyone. And this gives us, and it's far better to build a table than to build a wall, something you told me last time we talked.
Yes.
We have more in common, as I said in the beginning. We have more in common than what divides us. And people like Dr. McCloud are making that happen. Now you can see this show on my podcast called Life Altering Events. It's on my YouTube channel. It'll be on Parade Deck and multiple pages on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, etc. I will also send Dr. McCloud a link and she'll post it everywhere she puts things out also. If you use the YouTube channel, please subscribe. Let me leave you with this, as I do every week. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are. And today, Dr. McCloud showed us where many of those rocks are. Join me again next week. We get into another life-altering event. Dr. McCloud, thank you again.
Thank you for the invitation.